Hi, I'm Mercedes Fobb at the Captured on Canvas studio. Welcome to Picture This. For today's painting, picture this. We're going to take a step into the forest and we're going to paint a tall, beautiful waterfall. We're going to frame it with some nice tree foliage. We're going to have some flowers up along the water line, and then we'll finish it with a soaring eagle. Before we get started, we'll make sure we have everything in front of us. Most importantly, on my easel, I'm going to have a blank 16 by 20 staining vertically. I'm going to have a cup of water as well as a sponge or a paper towel for cleaning those brushes. For my paintbrushes, I am going to have 4 of them today. I'm going to use my large 1-inch flat tip brush. I'm going to have a middle-sized 1/4-inch brush and a tiny brush, and last but not least, a bad hair day brush. This kind of has that rough bristle for some texture later. On my paint palette, I'm going to have a lot of colors today. I'm going to have black, phthalo green, white, yellow, green oxide, bright red, and burnt umber. Anytime I start a painting, I always like to start with the background and paint the closest thing last. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and start with kind of framing it in with some black, and then it's going to fade into a nice almost teal color where that waterfall will be lighting the forest. So I'm going to use that big brush using black, and I'm first actually going to draw like my horizon where that waterfall is going to meet the ground. Go up maybe about a 1/4 way, 1/3 the way up. Just going to draw a line all the way across. Doesn't have to be perfect. And from here, I'm going to start from this left side going all the way up and all the way down, remembering to also get the sides of my canvas as I go. Always makes the piece look more finished, so you don't have to worry about framing it. But I'm going to bring this in maybe about a 1/4 to 1/3 the way in to the center. I might add a little bit of water onto my brush as well just to help that paint flow a little better. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on the right side. Okay, so I'm about a 1/3 the way in on each side. I am going to go ahead and clean off my brush. And for my next color, I'm going to use that phthalo green. So with this, I'm just going to start on the inside of the black, all the way up and all the way down, and then I'm going to start overlapping and keep overlapping until I get a nice blend between the 2 colors. I'm going to do that on each side, and remembering to finish around the top of the canvas. It's always hard to remember when we get all these colors going in there to remember to get those sides. I'm going to bring it in until I have maybe about, let's say about 2 to 3 inches maybe in the middle. I'm going to get that blend first here. All right, so I'm kind of getting close. I might just bring it in a little bit more here. Nice long brush strokes. This color can be a little transparent, so it's going to help make it more solid, opaque. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that brush, not even cleaning it, I'm just going to get a little bit of white and just start in the middle, and then you'll see that this makes a really nice teal color. Again, I'm going to make sure those brush strokes are vertical all the way up and all the way down. And I'm going to take this and fill in the entire middle. We kind of want it, again, kind of that light teal color. So we'll go back and add some white highlights for that waterfall. Kind of just starting with that nice glow. Don't forget the top. We can bring that out a little bit. And there we have. So that is a good start for where the waterfall is going to be. Now we're going to continue to kind of do those similar steps down here for the water. What's going to be different with this, instead of going vertical, we're going to go horizontal. So I might just clean my brush, get a nice fresh start again. And I'm going to start with the black again and pulling from the left side over to the right. I'm going to come into about where that black finished up above, about a third that way across. Filling in the side of the canvas again. We'll do the same thing on the right side as well. So finishing with the black here, I like to make, not so it's like a straight line, I kind of just like it fading away. Kind of staggering in lengths there. And then I'm going to clean my brush and then go back to the phthalo green, keeping those brush strokes left and right, go right next to it here and going in, so I have maybe about 2 inches left in the middle, going back and forth to get that nice blend. Some of these I might take out a little bit further, like even all the way to the edge of the canvas. It's pretty dark out there, but at least it's going to kind of break up all that black a little bit. You'll see it a little once it dries. And sometimes too, I have to move my canvas up on that little ledge to get that very bottom. Okay, so now I'm going to take my brush, just wiping off excess green, and get a little bit of white on there again. And starting from the middle, just flicking it left and right, starting to create that highlight in the water. Really light pressure here. And don't overblend it. We want it to be a little streaky, creating those highlights and keeping some low lights in that water. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my brush. And for the next step here, I am going to start creating just a little bit of trees that are kind of set back in the background. This will help create depth for the painting. So I'm going to move to my middle-sized 1/4 inch flat tip brush, and I'm going to mix kind of a dark teal. So I'm going to start with that phthalo green, separate that, add a little bit of white, and I'm going to tone it down with just a little bit of black. So I don't want it that bright. Kind of want it to set back a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. We'll see how this looks on the canvas here. So what I'm going to do with this brush is I'm going to hold it vertically, making those nice thin lines going up and down. And then I'm going to create just a few branches, maybe per tree, kind of like the letter Y. I'm going to start down here where that water meets the, I'm going to call it a cliff, I guess, even though we can't see it. I'm going to start with that line going up. Yeah, and I think that's a good shade. You can always lighten or darken it once you see, because sometimes when you paint on that black, it looks completely different than it does on your white palette. I'm going to add a little branch up here, like a little Y. Have some branches kind of going out into the waterfall area. Anytime you create overlap in your painting, it helps create depth. Add some a little bit lower. And I'm gonna maybe add one over here. Maybe this guy's a little bit taller. Really light pressure. Just kind of pull your brush away from the canvas as you pull it across. That'll kind of get those nice little points for those branches. And if you want, you can always add just a couple tree trunks back here, just in case they're going to be visible later. Just gives a little bit more interest. Alrighty, so we are going to let that dry here before our next step, so we'll catch you after the break. Welcome back to Picture This. We have just finished our background for a forest waterfall. Our next step here is going to be adding in some trees and some rocks. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start creating a nice tan color for our tree trunks. I'm going to be using my middle-sized 1/4-inch flat tip brush here, and I am going to start with a good scoop of white on my palette. And I am going to add then a good scoop of this burnt umber and mix that in, keeping it in a nice little pile the best I can. All right, so that should be pretty good. Just wiping off the extra paint there. And I'm going to draw the trees going up the left and right side of where my waterfall is going to be in the center there. So way over here, I'm just going to start with kind of quick little brush strokes here, leaving it kind of textured, which is kind of cool. It'll kind of create that illusion that it's bark. I'm going to go up a little bit here and just kind of make those branches kind of waving its way up there. They don't have to be perfectly straight. So I'm actually purposely making them kind of shaky. Adding a little bit of branches here. I want them to kind of come out way over here in front of that waterfall and my other tree. And I'm only actually going to go down maybe about a couple inches from where the water is down here, because later I'll add some bushes there so I don't have to paint over it all. I might just go back over here and just add a little bit more height to this other tree. This is always a good time to step back, make sure it's looking balanced throughout. I'm going to continue with this color now to create some rocks that are going to frame where the waterfall hits kind of where the ground is, and then we'll add some rocks up close. So with this same tan, I'm going to just make kind of like oval shaped rocks down here, coloring in them solid. Maybe a few on each side here. All right, now I'm going to make some big rocks that are going to frame the bottom of the canvas. So I might just start on this side here. It's kind of a big rock kind of coming up. Again, you can kind of shake your hand a little bit, gives it that little more rigid edge. And color it in. While I'm here, I may as well just take a little bit of that burnt umber and just kind of shade a little bit in on that left side. You can just kind of do X's, whatever you want to create a little bit of texture to your rock. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and clean off my brush. For my next step here, I'm going to start adding in some of the greens up in the trees, some of the bushes down low. So I'm going to use one of my favorite brushes, the Bad Hair Day brush. Again, it's just a little rough bristle, so then it gives more texture to the canvas when we just kind of dabble it on there. I'm going to mix kind of a, let's see, like maybe a little toned down phthalo green, kind of like what we used for the background trees. Again, I'll take some phthalo green, add a little bit of white, and add a little bit of black. So from here, I'm just going to dabble in some clusters. I kind of think of it as like little clouds up in the trees. So I'm going to kind of focus around the areas of my branches, kind of do some dabbles. And I try to just relax my wrist here. So it's just kind of going a little bit more organically. I don't want them to look like perfect little cotton balls in my tree. I want them to be a little more rigid, and I'm going to give some space between some of these clusters of leaves. because I don't want to cover everything that's behind it. I'll add some bushes so those trees don't look like they're floating. I am going to allow some of that black though from the background to shine through. It's actually going to make it look like a shadow within that bush down there. So I'll do the same thing on the right side. And we can always add a little bit up close too to kind of frame in on the sides. Just kind of maybe sneak in behind this rock here. And now I'm going to go ahead and clean off my brush. We're going to bring it forward just a little bit with mixing more of like a lime green or an apple green. So with that same Bad Hair Day brush, I'm going to start with yellow. And I'm going to add a little bit of white. And then we can just add some of that green oxide. So I want it nice and bright. And now I'm going to wipe off some of that extra paint off my brush here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to dabble for the leaves, but this time we want very much less of it. We just kind of want it on the inner side of the canvas so that our light source is again kind of coming from the middle of the canvas. We don't want to cover up all of that nice dark green. And what's nice about this still being wet, it might even blend in a little bit, which creates more variation within our trees. I'll add some now to the bushes on the ground, just on that right side of that left one and the left side of the right one. Again, keeping that consistent light source. All right, while we have this brush, we're gonna do one more thing here, and it is the waterfall, my favorite part. I'm gonna make sure my brush is really clean here, because we're gonna be using white. So we want it to be as white as we can. It'll bring it out a lot from that background. I'm gonna just take a little bit of white, and we're gonna be doing some dry brushing. So what that means is you want very little paint in your brush. You want a dry brush. If you have too much, then you're just going to end up with white streaks throughout the middle, and that's ideally not what we're looking for. We want some of that background color to show. So I always dabble off until I can actually see the hairs of my brush. And I'm going to start from the top and just pull straight down in the middle. And some of them might just kind of start from halfway up. We want that nice texture. That's what's cool about the Bad Hair Day brush. It kind of does the work for us. And then at the bottom, I'm going to add a little bit more to the highlight, going left and right, just in the middle. And then my favorite part, the splash. So with the white, we can get a little bit more paint on our brush, and we're going to do dabbling like we did with the leaves. I'm just going to kind of rotate that brush and just let it bounce off the canvas. We can have some splashes going up a little bit higher. We really want it more heavy right where the ground meets, I guess, that cliff there. So kind of darken this up a little bit. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So we're just gonna take a little break before we do our final touches here. We'll catch you after the break. Welcome back to Picture This. We are in the middle of working on a forest waterfall masterpiece. We're about to just kind of do the final touches, bringing a little bit of color and even life into our piece. For the next step, I am going to continue using my Bad Hair Day brush and brighten it up a little bit more throughout the greens with some yellow, kind of everywhere, I guess. So with that, I'm going to maybe take a little bit of yellow to the side on my palette, and I'm just going to add a little bit of white. This always just helps it be more opaque on such a dark background. I'm just adding enough to brighten it just a smidge. Like, you may not even notice a difference. And with this, I want very little, so I'm going to make sure I don't have too much paint in my brush. And again, I'm going to dabble even less than I did that lime green. So kind of focusing on the inner part of my branches here, just kind of really close up to that waterfall. I'll go down to the little bushes here. Kind of add in a few with the grass maybe next to my rocks. Just kind of soft little flicks up. That step is a lot of fun. It's hard for me to stop sometimes. But then I'll take the yellow, do the same thing with the plants down here. And I think we need a little bit more color yet to it because it's very green. So I'm going to clean off my brush. Just kind of create some pink abstract flowers. I'm still going to use this brush. I'm going to mix pink with a good scoop of white, plop that somewhere on my palette, and add just a little bit of red. And you could do whatever color you'd like, or as many colors too. Might be pretty good. So with this, I'm going to try to use the thin side of my brush because this is a flat brush, just to kind of create more vertical brush strokes here for the flowers. I'm only going to do it around the bottom where it frames in on that water. So I'm just going to dabble in just a couple little spurs here and there. And take a step back, make sure you're happy with it. I'm going to add maybe just a little bit of highlight. So I'm going to wipe off my brush, use just a little bit of white, and near the tops of each of those flowers, I'll just do like maybe one quick little dabble, or maybe a couple dabbles. All right, so I think we're ready to do our final little step here, and that is going to be to add a flying eagle in front of our waterfall. Just kind of creates more of a focal point and brings a little life to our painting. I mean, you can always add so many different animals to it if you'd like as well. Okay, so for the eagle, I'm going to use my tiniest brush because it's going to be really tiny. I'm just going to use black, creating more of a silhouette. It's going to be a bald eagle too, so I'm just going to start with the body, kind of an oval shape. And maybe about a third the way down on my canvas, a little off-centered here from the waterfall. Creating that little oval for the body. Just kind of a couple pulls in the right side there down to create a tail. And for the wing, I'm going to curve up and out to the right a little bit. And for the other wing, it'll curve out to the other direction. And for the wing, I'm just going to do a couple brush strokes all the way down that just pull back down from that first line we drew, kind of creating that texture for the feathers. Doing the same thing for the other wing. That one I might make a little bit smaller because it's on the other side. And I'm going to clean off my brush here, give the eagle the white head. So a little bit of white, got a little bit of water in my brush, so I'll dry that off a little bit. Little bit of white, and I'm just going to create just a little circle here basically up at the top of the body. You can have it overlap and kind of look like a feather texture there. And let's see, I think we need a yellow beak. So I'm going to use that, clean my brush off, I just kind of wiped it off, and I'll use some of that yellow that I used with a little bit of white and create this little dot where you want that little beak, maybe little feet there as well. And this is a fun part. This is a really cool painting because you can always go in and add so many different details. I might just do one more here, even though I said that was our last step. But adding a little bit of highlights to your rocks is kind of helpful, using that middle-sized brush with a little bit of white, especially if the water is splashing. It would be probably wet, so we want it to look like they fit in a little bit. Even these little guys back here. All right, but anytime you're done with the painting, you always sign it. You can always do it with the tiniest paintbrush. Sometimes I use marker, but I try to use the paintbrush as much as possible. Let's see, I'll do pink, why not? I always sign down in the lower right corner. So I just put the year. And there you have it. That concludes our waterfall masterpiece today. Thank you so much for following along with me, Mercedes, at the Captured on Canvas studio. We'll see you next time on Picture This.
Give it a minute.